Hey guys, this is a video on how to knit a short row heel on a rotating cylinder circular sock machine. My machine is a Dean and Bean sock machine. So in this demo, I've already knit a couple rows of waste yarn onto my cast-on bonnet, but if you were knitting a sock, you would have just finished cranking the leg or the foot rows, depending on if you're doing toe up or cuff down. Your main mark should be at 9 o'clock, and my main mark here is in black. And so we'll start by raising all the needles on the lower half of the cylinder, starting from the main mark all the way to the halfway mark. And my halfway mark is in red, and you can't really see it because it's kind of a small mark and it's in red and the yarn is in red, so sorry about that. I typically like to kind of push down the needles so that the bottom parts of the needles are flush with the rim of the cam case, so that it doesn't bump into the adjuster knob for the V cams. And here I've finished cranking the row, and we're going to hang some heel forks. So I try to hang the heel forks as close to where the edges of where I'll be knitting. And what you're looking for is to make sure that the weight is pulling down on the stitches so that they'll knit correctly. So to start, we lift one needle and crank around. And then from here, we're going to start your decrease stitches by lifting one and then cranking around. And you're going to do this, lifting one on each side of the stitch that you just worked and cranking around all the way until the target needles. So I'm actually going to cut the video so that you don't have to see me crank all of these. And I'll pick up the video again when I am one stitch away from the target needles. So here I am one stitch away from the target needles. And what we're going to do is we're going to lift the needle that we just worked just like we have been and crank around. And then this is the last needle that needs to be lifted. And I missed a stitch there and on the other side, so just fixing that really quick. And I'm going to adjust my heel forks to make sure that I don't continue missing stitches. If you find that you're missing stitches on the edges, it's probably because your weight is not pulling down on the stitches properly. So just make sure you have that weight and make sure that your stitches are like sticking really close or right on top of the rim of the cylinder. So for this row, we're going to lift one, crank around, and it's going to be different. I adjust my needles because they're hitting the cams. You're going to lift one, and then you're going to push down two, and then you're going to repeat that step again, and now you're doing increasing rows. So you're going to lift one, crank around, push down two, there you go, and you're just going to keep doing this until we get to getting very close to where we started. And you can tell where we started not only by the marks on your cylinder, but you can also look for the needles that have wrapped stitches on them. Wrapped stitches will look like they have two stitches on the wraps. Sorry, I mean 2 stitches on the needle. You can't see it from this angle, unfortunately. So I've paused here to kind of give an overview where we're at right now. At this point, you're about to crank the row that has only 2 wrapped stitches to be pushed down at the end of the row. So what you'll do is lift the needle like you've been doing, crank around, push down those last 2 wrapped stitches, and then lift the needle. And before you crank back around, wrap the needle next to it, crank around, push down the 2 needles, lift the stitch that you just worked, wrap the one next to it, and now you're ready to crank the rest of the foot. And here I'm kind of fiddling with it because the yarn didn't quite make it into the latch, so I'm just checking to make sure that it makes it in so I don't drop the stitch. Now this time when you're cranking around, you're going to start pushing down all of the needles back to work because now you're going back to knitting either the foot or the leg of the sock. There is not much weight on the other side of the cylinder, so I usually change my heel forks around right then to make sure that that side also has weight. So you're just going to go around cranking very slowly and pushing down all of the needles back into work, and you're pretty much done with the heel. And from here you can just keep cranking and cranking, however many rows you need your um, for your foot. Now I'm going to skip ahead a little bit on this video because this next part is just me kind of fiddling around and getting the cable ring to sit right and the weights to sit right so that all of the stitches are getting even tension so that I can crank without missing stitches. So we'll just fast forward through all of that. Okay, now we're back with the soft weight. I also hang heel weights, the heel fork weights underneath because my soft weight is actually not very heavy and is very bulky because we didn't have the copper plated BBs. We had these biodegradable ones, which I don't think are as heavy, but it works. So I'm just going to crank around a few more rows and then I'll take it off and you guys can see what the heel looks like. And I don't know if this is like the correct way to make a heel or if this heel looks attractive. It's definitely functional. I haven't worn any socks with this heel yet since I'm pretty new at using circular sock machines and I haven't really had a chance to wear the stuff that I've made. But I think it works, and you don't get the holes at the edges, and it pretty much just follows the one up, two down formula that is pretty standard, I think. So here we are, and that's the heel. I hope you guys enjoy the video. If you guys have any questions, I'll try my best to answer them. You can message me or you just comment. Thanks for watching and happy cranking. Bye.